Hello, my name is Cody Lee, and today I'm going to talk to you about how our society today, our music, our culture has misappropriated the American Indian culture. And throughout history, our music has had a history of misappropriating different cultures, whether it's Native American, could be the African American culture, whatever it may be. Our society has a way of misappropriating the different cultures that we're surrounded by. And specifically to Native American culture, whether it's through movies or music or art, paintings, whatever it may be, the indigenous culture is seen in a way that is not true to who they really are. And we give false info to our society. So for those reasons, our modern day culture, like American popular music, has misappropriated the Native American culture. So what is cultural misappropriation? Cultural misappropriation is the intentional theft of tangible or non-tangible cultural commodities by an outsider with the intent to be used for economic gain or to intentionally create a stereotype. And that is from our textbook, which is the indigenous culture of Turtle Island, I believe. And one of the ways that cultural misappropriation is shown is through singing red face. And singing red face occurs when a non-native person takes on the racial archetype of a Native American character through song. And basically, singing red face is just a way for non-natives to try to fit the role of what they believe to be true about American Indian culture. And by doing this, the performers, the singers, they become more insensitive to the culture that they're trying to portray. And for example, racial slurs, mocking, they tend to be the main reasons that their performances become inauthentic. And it's not a true representation of the culture that they're trying to represent. And they believe that they have to dress up to be able to portray what they're trying to portray, and that's not necessarily true. And singing red face, an example that I saw to be interesting was through the movie Peter Pan. And there's a musical scene in the movie, the Disney movie, where the kids meet the local native tribe. I believe they're called the Pekingese, and that in the name itself is just a derogatory term towards the African American culture. And so in this scene, the kids meet the Lost Boys and the local native tribe, and the tribe people, they have bright red faces. Their facial features are larger than normal. They don't have any eyes, and they just look like savages. And through the music that they're playing, it's an example of singing red face. And that is a misappropriation of the American culture that we're teaching our children. And kids, they don't know what cultural misappropriation is. They don't know very much. And so whenever they see this movie of the Indians looking like they do, not only do they think it's funny, they actually believe it. And so that's the way singing red face can misappropriate our culture. And also, in the same movie, Peter Pan, it depicts how playing Indian is seen in our generation today, in our culture. And what playing Indian is basically someone dressing up to fit the role they believe to be a part of the Native American culture. Excuse me. So, particularly in this scene, the captains, Captain Hook, Smee, the different pirates, they help the children to become Indian in a sense, and by giving them Indian names and putting on these large oversized feather headdresses. And this shows how dressing up, and not only in music but in real life, where we dressed up as Indians for Halloween. I know in my school, we had a Thanksgiving play, and we dressed up as Indians and pilgrims. And that's what we believe them to be, but that's not necessarily true. And so that's a cultural misappropriation. And not only is singing redface an example, another example towards the African American community is blackface minstrelsy, which developed during the time of slavery, and it's basically when white men wanted to explore the African American culture themselves, specifically the musical aspect. And according to the African American Almanac, the slaves would want to show off their talents to their fellow slaves, but to their owners as well. And even some of the slave owners would purposely go out and hire certain slaves solely for their talents. And they would have them travel the country to showcase their skills. And during the 1820s, 30s, when slavery was a big deal, the African American culture was fascinating to the white men who believed they were superior to them. And so the white men would blacken their faces with cork, and they would perform the different jigs and songs and jokes with topical allusions to blacks in their lyrics. And this is blackface minstrelsy. It's an early form of misappropriating different cultures, and that's how singing redface came about. And so not only does singing redface and blackface minstrelsy misappropriate culture, and racial antipathy can do the same. And racial antipathy is basically where you have a strong dislike for a certain culture. And an example of this is the song Your Squaw is on the Warpath, which basically shows a drunken Indian man who can barely walk, even crawl, coming home one night, and he was trying to pick up some women, and he left his wife at home. She was frustrated because she was left to clean the house, cook, watch the kids, which is like what people back then believed to be the woman's place. And the husband would call her wife the squaw, which is a racial slur towards the Native American culture. And she was taken over by rage and anger, and she is set on this warpath. And this is racial antipathy because, like the drunken, cheating, and disrespectful chief, that this artist who sang the song, Loretta Lynn, she puts down sarcastically by belittling the chief, and at the same time making the woman seen as this crazy, uncontrollable, angry Native woman who can just get set on the warpath at any given time. So far we've looked at racial antipathy, singing redface, blackface minstrelsy, and idealized sympathy does the same amount of damage as the previous terms we discussed. And idealized sympathy, is sympathy for imaginary Native American caricature, and it falsely misrepresents the Native culture. And idealized sympathy is a way for American music to appropriate certain voices, which is where music empathetically characterizes singing redface. And in the book, The Idealization of Indian Music, musician Edward McDowell and his song Indian Sweet give us a good balance of sympathy. Not too much, not too little, not insulting, but more appreciative. And this is where sympathy can be good, but at the same time, idealized sympathy is bad, and it's what we want to try to avoid. And an example is the song The Pale-Faced Indian. It depicts the forced assimilation of natives and the loss of their identity. And the lyrics themselves portray a strong message, at the same time give us a comical sense, and we believe it to be almost like funny. And that's what basically idealized sympathy is. Like, no matter what the culture is, and also cultural confusion as well, can do just as much damage as idealized sympathy, singing redface, blackface minstrelsy as well. And what cultural confusion is, it's when someone is unaware of the fact that they're misrepresenting a culture. and they're not aware of it. And that's how our generation is today. Our music, our movies, our art, no matter what it is, this culture of confusion causes authentic cultures to have false information spread about them, and we as the people believe it to be true. So that is my presentation of how American popular music misappropriates Native American culture, and I hope you learned something today. And that is all. Thank you.